Hi, I'm Wack.
Hey, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Weekly Orbit. It's episode number 76, and this is the week ending Friday, November 1st. Has it been an October? I don't know. It looks like we've been sideways again. I thought at the end of September, Wack, we'd be maybe a little up, but I think we'll check prices in just a
Well,
minute. But it's been a good week
it,
for Rocket Pool and Node Set and Saturn 1 or Saturn 0, and so we can all talk about that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Okay, so let's jump right in. And the markets, we'll take a look at Ethereum first. Looks like it is around $2,600 as of this morning. We're recording this on October 31st. Happy Halloween. We're up on the week, so about 3%, 2.8%. Not too bad of a week. Let's check out the Ethereum.
If you have a look at the month, though, we're down like nearly 1% on the month. So for Ethereum, there was no
Yeah,
October for Ethereum. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. 0.8% negative. Well, maybe we'll see a resurgence in 2025, but let's take a look at the, we keep pushing it off, ETF flows for the week. Looks like we hit a little bit flat. We had a couple kind of trickle days, I'd say 4.4 million yesterday, 7.6 positive the day before. We had a kind of a down day on October 25th of about 19. Compared to BTC flows, this is really minuscule. Yeah, BTC flows have been really chugging along pretty good. But it's
BTC
also
had
it's a much bigger asset too. So I mean, you got to take it.
Yeah, I think there's elements of cope, right? Like the Ethereans are kind of like telling ourselves. BTC had October like nobody's business. Like that is hitting all-time highs, pretty much like less than 1% away from all-time highs. Yesterday's ETFs for BTC had $1 billion inflow, pretty much 880 million just into Grayscale, I think yesterday. So 880 million, sorry, not into Grayscale, into BlackRock. 900 million in total inflows, and Ethereum had like what 2 million, I think it was, or something. So this is
Yeah.
just not comparable. Like Bitcoin is just absolutely a surgeon right now. Like it's phenomenal, the strength it's showing. And sadly, like it means that ETH is weak, and it's really interesting because a lot of the narratives have become ETH is dead, ETH is finished, ETH is no more. If you look at the 1 month, you can see at the bottom it's up 11%. So that means the ETH ratio is down 11%, right? Nearly 12% it's down. So the
Yep.
ratios hit new lows for this cycle, down to 0.0359, somewhere around there. So, ETH really has taken the battering against BTC, and that has been, it's not fun, basically, to be an ETH holder right now. And like I said, like, a lot of this commentary is like ETH is dead, ETH is finished. Why would you have ETH as asset? If you want this proof of, scarce asset, if you want, I forgot the term for it. What's the term for it? Money, store of value. If you want a store of value asset, you go to BTC. And if you want, the active, like, smart contract project, then you go to Solana. So it's like very much like this barbell kind of thesis that's kind of coming through. And that is very much in line with the kind of stuff that we saw in 2020, except in 2020, it was like, you have BTC as a store of value. And then on the other side of the barbell, like the narrative at the time was you'd go to DeFi tokens, right? Like, why would you hold ETH? ETH is garbage. You go to the DeFi tokens, and that's where you'll really like see outperformance, blah, blah, blah. It's the same kind of like shtick kind of playing out again. And like last time, like I know we've been saying it for a while, but like this kind of sentiment really does feel like the bottom. But
Yeah.
who knows how when the actual bottom will be? Like, we can never tell. But I feel like it's really, really close now. So I don't know. But like BTC is showing incredible strength right now.
Yeah, but you know what? Take a look at the flows you had in October 30th, 893 million in flows to the BTC ETF. But if you look at the price, over the last 24 hours, it's down 1.7%. On the week, it's just up 4%. These are monster flows coming in, and it's going up, but you would think that it would go up higher, but it's a different mechanics. You got the proof of work. So a lot of these miners have to sell. It's a much bigger asset. So it takes a lot more money to move the price. So I guess it's a relative thing, based on the size, based on whether it's proof of work or proof of stake. Because you would think that when you first look at this graph, you're like, wow, these are, comparatively speaking to ETH ETF, it's a magnitude greater than the ETH, but the price went up single digits. But so I think it shows the differences between where ETH is in its life cycle and BTC in its life cycle too.
Yeah, well, hopefully, like in this cycle, narrative, it seems like the Ethereans are they keep pushing out the moment where ETH will have its resurgence a little bit further and further back. And, we were hoping that it would start with rate cuts. Obviously, it hasn't started yet. And now we're just hoping, for more rate cuts and hopefully, I don't know. Trust me, I'm not selling my ETH. I'm not bearish or anything like that, but it's been a tough time to be an ETH holder, like seeing other, Solana hitting all-time highs against ETH ratio, BTC, of course, hitting cycle highs against ETH ratio. And, then we've got ETH and RPL who are not performing that well. So,
Ben Cohen, who Ethereum's love to hate, he predicted that the ETH BTC ratio would bottom out this quarter. So it's kind of playing out that way so far, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed. But I think 2025 is going to be good for everyone, and we just need to get there. So don't blow yourselves up. Don't fumble your bag, basically.
That's right. Yeah, and RPL had a down week as well, down about 4.5% on the week, which means the ratio is down just a touch too. Ratio right now is 0.004. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see better things come. Let's take a look at the deposit pool. WAC. We haven't touched this. I think the last time we had a weekly order was maybe June because it had been full. There was really nothing to talk about. But now there's certainly a lot to talk about. The balance right now, let's refresh this because I think I had this up from earlier. But we're under...
Last night. No. Yep. When you refresh it, you'll see what it is. Look at that.
It's up to 9,000.
No, it's nine.
Nine. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm looking at the small screen. Like that's a period, and that's a period, not a comma. So
that is 9. Not a comma.
So, I pulled this up last night around, it's basically empty. We had just under 4,000 when I went to bed last night, and now we're down to 9. So what happened between now and then?
So the main thing that we've seen some big node operators come online. One of them just before Saturn 0 went live, exited, and it looked like their RPL belonged to Aave, so they returned the RPL and then they came back in, which is nice. Another, a whole lot of reductions have happened. I think right now, 450 or so reductions have happened. We've had over 1,000 validators start since Saturn 0, just less than a week ago, well, 4 days ago, basically. It's been incredibly strong in terms of getting new validators in line. In fact, as you can see, that there's even a queue. If you scroll up a little bit, now we have a queue for validators. There's 43 validators worth of a queue. So that is right there as well. So that has been incredible, right? I thought that we would have hit that number a little bit sooner, but there were a few exits and a few rETH burns that had happened. So when we were talking last week, the deposit pool size was, I think, around 25,000, right? And I said, my prediction, I think we are going to go to 0, and then we're going to mint more rETH, and then that's going to go to 0 as well. So it kind of has happened, except that not with minting more rETH, but ETH being distributed into the deposit pool. So we've had 1,000 validators, which means that we've had 32,000 ETH worth of ETH coming into the protocol, and of course that was more than that was in the deposit pool at the time. So that's great, but it's just not quite happened in the way that I'd hoped. But this is a tremendous, incredible success. Now the whole community is kind of pivoting towards we need rETH demand, and I've been saying this for years now, literally. I think the first time I said what's going to happen, with the rETH demand was 2 years ago when the pETH and ETH debate was happening. I was like, once we start, changing the parameters, we're going to need a whole lot of rETH to come in. And that's kind of hitting us in the face right now. So there's a queue, the deposit pool is empty. That's all awesome. But we we need those deposits to kind of eat through it. The ideal like equilibrium state is somewhere around 9,000 or maybe 5,000 ETH in the deposit pool, because that gives ETH for people to burn it. That gives a whole lot of space for people to mint our ETH. But this is actually much better than having a full deposit pool, because there's no APR drag on the rETH, which is great to see. The queue functionality, we talked about this around Atlas like over a year ago now, where we said that when you have a queue, the way that the mechanisms work now is that people at the back of the queue feed the people at the front of the queue, and it actually gives rETH a boost as well. So there's a few like interesting dynamics that come to play that I'm hoping to see kind of play out in the coming days. But the reality is that even with just bond reductions, we have 150,000 rETH worth of capacity that we need to lift. If every person who's on the 16 ETH validator bond reduces, that's how much rETH we need to mint to kind of fulfill that. So that's what we're looking at now. That's what we're kind of hoping for. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, so this is a tremendous success, and just so I can eat crow, I think what was my prediction? 15,000?
16,000 ETH in the deposit pool. So you were thinking there'd be like 8,000 ETH would go down.
Right, so I'm off by 15,991 ETH.
No, you're off by a lot more than that. Like I said, we've had over 32,000 ETH come in, so it's actually more than that. You said we'd go down by 8,000. We've actually added 32,000, so you're down 24,000.
Thanks for rubbing it in. So yeah, you're much.
I told you
you're
that at
much
the time.
closer.
I said it to you at the time. I said to you, what you're saying is preposterous. Like that is not going to happen.
I didn't do the math.
It's going to work now. Yeah,
I didn't do the math. And if you look at it, it's the bond reductions. We've had a few new validators come online, but it's mostly just existing node operators who've bond reduced that has got us here. Right.
I think it's about half and half. So like I said, we've got 1,000 new validators thereabouts coming online. About 500 from that is from new validators, and 500 of that is from bond reductions. So we've got another 4,500 or so bond reductions to come. So that's what I mean. Just on those alone, we've got nearly 135,000 or something rETH demand waiting for us, and an empty deposit pool, so another 18,000 on top. So that's where the 150,000 rETH demand is available right now, or will be like very, very soon. It can be activated very quickly. That's definitely something to pay attention to, keep an eye on.
Yep. Let's take a look. Yeah. So we thought this would happen. You would get the deposit pull down to zero, which, the Rocket Pool's product is rETH. And now we need to figure out how do we incentivize people to mint rETH, deposit their ETH and get rETH back. This Chainlink news this week, they say CCIP's programmable token transfers enable liquid restaking protocols to significantly reduce the friction involved with acquiring LSTs or LRTs on L2 networks. And Gravita, they responded, we cannot wait to enable the bridge for xrETH. And, I was like, wow, this is cool. But how come we're not mentioned? rETH isn't mentioned. And if we click on this tweet, where is it? So they mentioned several staking protocols. You got Diva, you got Eigen, Pi, Frax, Gravita, Origin Protocol, and Stakestone. I was like, oh, what about Rocket Pool? Why are we not in that list? And actually, Destroya in the rETH Growth Incubator, he actually beat me to it here, and he says one of his recommendations is to integrate with CCIP to stake directly with Rocket Pool from L2s. Lido has integrated with Chainlink already. That's to be expected. They seem to always be one step ahead of us. The benefits would allow L2 users to mint rETH at low gas costs. The drawbacks require integration work. So this is one of many submissions, WAC, that we've got for the rETH Growth Incubator. There is rewards. If first place and second place, you get $2,000 for your submission. Tier 2 is third place to fifth place, you get $1,000. And tier 3 is 6th through 20, you get $250. So if you think you got an idea, spend some time, likely to get at least $250 just for posting it. But this is going to run through, I think, November 8th. And so there's about a week left to submit. We're looking for ideas. This was really successful. We did something just like this about a year ago, or maybe 10 months ago. We did the incubator for revamping the Rocket Pool protocol. So is any of these things stick out to you? Have you looked over any of the submissions so far?
Yeah, I think like the kind of ideas that we're seeing are the kind that have been floated in the community for a while. Like, hey, like, let's do an outreach program to different DAOs. That's from Dr. Doofus. Or, hey, let's do like, liquidity incentives, or let's do minting incentives, and all these different kinds of things. Like Ken here saying, our ETH advertising campaign, etc. So these are ideas that have been in and around the community. The really great thing about this incubator is that, we get all the ideas in one place. And because we get all the ideas in one place, the positive thing that happens with that is, the people who are reviewers for this, they can go away and they can say, actually, we think this idea is really good. We think this idea is not so good. And then it gives us something actionable to work on as a community and kind of like rally around. Some of these things will cost money, and some of these things will cost time from the community. And the ones that cost money, we'll have to figure out if we have the money to do it. The ones that cost time, then we'll have to figure out if we have the volunteers who can do it as well, right? And the really great thing is, like, as people start working on these, you'll see that like Rocket Pool's growth is in everyone's best interest. And we need our ETH growth to get Rocket Pool to grow. And when our ETH grows, then the protocol grows, TVL grows, and in Saturn 1 that is directly going to impact the incentives for our RPL token. So this I think is going to have really positive results, even if the ideas aren't novel and groundbreaking. It's just a really good idea to have everything in one place and kind of have it all lined up so we can act on it basically as a community and kind of rally behind some of these ideas.
What's the time frame for this? So it runs to November 8th. I assume it's going to take some time to evaluate and rank these. Is it, should we expect the first and second place to be in the next 30 days? We'll have an idea of which ideas have come to the top?
Yeah, exactly. So we should have actionable things within a month. And at that point, we can even go to the PDAO if we need to and say, hey, look, we need some money to implement some of these plans. Let's take it out of the PDAO like rainy day fund. We'll have to see what the GMC can help with, what the IMC can help with, and try to figure out which things will go into different wheelhouses. But overall, I think the main idea is having the whole community kind of rally behind these ideas and the whole community working together to kind of push this forward. I think that's the really exciting part here.
Cool. Let's take a look at Rocket Sweep NodeSet dashboard here to see how NodeSet Constellation is doing. And we're at about 565 mini pools. Amazing. They're going to approach they might be the largest node operator given enough time here, maybe another, who knows, maybe a couple more weeks.
To be the largest single node operator, I think that's within striking distance, hopefully within a few weeks. The issue for Constellation now is that for the first 2 weeks before Saturn Zero launched, they had this incentive that they were going to refund part of the gas fees. So that's gone away now. So people are a lot more gas fee sensitive than they were last week. The second thing is that Constellation had access to overflowing deposit pool, which they really did make the most of for 2 weeks there. However, now that's gone, so there's a queue. So I think that's going to change the dynamics a little bit as well. And the third thing is that they've got to now they're double constrained, so they've got to wait for ETH to mint xrETH, but then they've also got someone's got to be minting the rETH as well, so that it's a little bit more constrained now. So the growth might slow down a little bit, but hopefully in the next few weeks and months they'll keep getting those deposits coming through, and we'll be able to spin up validators with them. Did you have your interview with them yet? And are you a NodeSet node operator now?
I have it later today with Nick.
Oh, nice. Yep. Congratulations.
So, yeah. I was just thinking of this when we were talking about the Chainlink integration, and Gravitas is excited about xrETH, but wouldn't it make sense to also integrate xrPL as well?
RPL as a token is a utility token, right? And the utility for RPL is on layer 1. Like, it's a staking token that you use to bond your validators. And the vast majority of it is on L1. There's actually not that much RPL on L2s. In fact, on some of the exchanges like, Uniswap, etc., the slippage is really bad on layer 2s. So there's not that much, for RPL to do on layer 2s. For our ETH, of course, there's millions of ETH on layer 2s now. So that's definitely available to use to mint xrETH. and that, hopefully the people will take advantage of that happening.
It seems like probably more demand for xrETH than there is for xRPL. And I assume that there's ideas floating around. How do we incentivize those who've got RPL in their wallets to deposit here and through Constellation? Because they're kind of getting constrained. If you look at it, Constellation might be constrained from 3 different places. You're constrained with people depositing RPL. You got to get people to deposit ETH for xrETH. And then you got to have enough ETH in the Rocket Pool deposit pool as well. So they've got 3 different balls to juggle in order to be successful. And I'm wondering if we're going to reach a point where that becomes an issue.
Yeah, of course. Like in the Rocket Pool protocol, we had 2 constraints, right? Like we had like the ETH, like from node operators and rETH minting, like those are the kind of issues that we had, and we found that it was kind of one extreme or the other over the life of Rocket Pool, like since it's been on mainnet. And now for Constellation, like they have to juggle on top of that, right? So there's definitely constraints involved that make it a little bit more difficult, like to juggle all those different balls. But with the great thing about Saturn Zero is it makes the RPL issue easier for them. Like if they'll cost them a bit of yield, but they'd rather have the ETH staked than the ETH not staked. So if you deposit xrETH and they're saying, hey, we don't want to stake this yet because we're not at our RPL target, that will actually cost them more overall than if they do stake it and they are getting RPL whatever RPL rewards that you need, because with Saturn Zero you can go all the way down to 0 RPL if you wanted, and I think that's going to be some interesting, numbers they're going to have to crunch to see what looks like the ideal, ratio for them and what kind of systems they would have in place. The thing is, their contracts are, there's no order, there's no governance process. They can tweak things whenever they want, pretty much. They try to be careful about it, but they can do it pretty quickly. So that gives them a lot of freedom to move things around depending on what the protocol does or doesn't need, and that I think will serve them well. They can be very adaptable to what's happening in the market.
Now let's move on to the other news for the week. AlphaGrowth has partnered with Rocket Pool on a growth mission. I'll just read the tweet. With such aligned missions, we are proud to announce the Rocket Pool growth program. Rocket Pool issued a $60,000 grant, $16,000 for AlphaGrowth to do a 4-month trial of service. The sole objective is to expand our ETH adoption. So this was, I assume this was funded through the GMC, and you're on the GMC. What was AlphaGrowth's pitch to the committee? What's the hope that over the next 4 months, what is the objectives that AlphaGrowth's going to achieve?
Yeah, so they actually put in a grant request a couple of months ago, I think, or over 6 weeks ago, and they were like, oh, Rocket Pool's node operator constrained, we'll help you bring node operators online. And very, very quickly, I was like, no, thank you. We don't want more node operators because, we've got Saturn Zero coming up really, really quickly. And you could see from my tone last week, I was very strongly of the belief that we're going to be rETH constrained very quickly, and, potentially hundreds of thousands of ETH worth of rETH constrained. And because of that, in our very early discussions, from the GMC to AlphaGrowth, we said, we don't want you to bring node operators online. If you do want to bring node operators online, that's fine. We're not going to stop you. But what we really need from you is for you to, get rETH online, get minting, because their grant was approved a couple of weeks ago, and everything was set up, and then they were just waiting for Saturn Zero to go live, and now we see we've got an empty deposit pool and a queue forming. So that just tells you that there is a lot here that they can do, hopefully, to mint our ETH. And they've already been kind of having discussions. They were at Token 2049, I think, or another conference earlier this month, and I think supposedly they've already been having discussions, and then they've got a big idea that I think you're going to share kind of next, and we can kind of talk about where the community stands on that. So why don't we have a look at that?
Yeah, this is regarding Tron. They have been in discussions with the Tron folks and bridging our ETH over to that chain, which is it's not an Ethereum aligned chain. It's different. It's mostly known as Justin Sun's chain. It's mostly known for stable coins, USDT. It's also known for some shady activity, and And so it's been a pretty lively discussion amongst the folks in the community on the pros and cons. It seems like the incentive committee has has a budget. And it seems like, from my understanding, some have been saying, listen, we have limited funds. We really need to pick and choose. Does it make sense to incentivize on a completely non-Ethereum line chain when we could be doing incentivizing our ETH on Arbitrum and Optimism and ZK Sync and things like that? So that's my high level. What are your thoughts on the Tron proposal?
Yeah, so the Tron proposal is fascinating because, okay, let's take a step back, okay? rETH is a permissionless token. So we can't stop anyone from minting rETH. We can't stop them from bridging it wherever they want, right? Like Rocket Pool has no say over what that person does in terms of minting the token, but also we don't have any say over them bridging it to other L1s. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like what AlphaGrowth here are trying to figure out is, what can Rocket Pool do in this situation to kind of make it more likely to happen, right? Can we offer incentives? Can we offer co-marketing? Like that would be very valuable to like the Tron people, because they would get, like, say, they could tap into our reputation, right? They could say Rocket Pool is the most decentralized, the most trustless, the most permissionless, the best like LST in Ethereum. We are now bridging this to Tron for Tron users so they can take advantage of all those amazing qualities that rETH has, but on Tron. So the thing is, like, they don't need us to say anything or do anything for them to move the token there. But by us saying that, hey, we support this, that's giving them a lot of legitimacy that, they'll need to make that successful. Now, the problem is that, Justin Sun, Tron, they have a reputational problem that, that can be kind of whitewashed in a sense with this partnership with Rocket Pool to some extent. Rocket Pool's small, right? But we have a very, very strong reputation, and we're known for like having a lot of integrity. So that those values would transfer to them. What do we get out of it? Now, different people in the community have said different things. Some of them are like, we should be really careful with who we align with, and Tron would be a no. Others have said, it depends on money. Like if they give us enough money, then, we could do it. Like, and the numbers they were saying was like, in the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of rETH minting, which would be, tens of thousands of rETH potentially being minted. Now, what I think the thing that I'm getting out of this conversation is kind of seeing where the limits of the community are and like what we want, right? Like, what values are some that we won't sacrifice for money coming in, and where can we make those negotiations and where can we find limits? So I think what's happening here is like basically, the AlphaGrowth guys, they want to kind of figure out what the community stance is before they then go and talk to the Tron people saying, hey, this is the situation. Like, what do you guys think? And kind of pitching them to it. I think overall, the community would rather actually put up, like, figure out what the return on investment would be, right? Like, that's one of the key things. And with that, then you have ethos alignment. You also have a reputational, like, cost. So when you put all of those numbers together, like, is this a good enough deal for Rocket Pool for us to be able to say, we're putting our name on this and we're saying that this is a partnership with Tron? That's what it kind of comes down to. But just having this conversation, I think, is really important, because I think that these kind of conversations are going to be coming up a lot over the next few weeks and months. And getting this kind of discussion out in the community now is, I think, really healthy, because it will allow us to kind of set like limits and benchmarks for what we want going forwards. Now, I would love for someone to come and mint $200 million worth of rETH. That would be absolutely amazing. Like, I'm not going to say no to that. But then the stuff that kind of comes around that's what we kind of have to be a little bit more careful about. So this is an ongoing discussion. I don't think it's going to be decided in a day. I think it's the kind of thing that will upset potentially some people, either because they'll feel like we're leaving money on the table if we, don't go ahead with it, or people who will be upset that, we did go ahead with it and it's causing us reputational cost. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the community kind of ends up on this discussion. But I'm really glad that we're actually having it, and hopefully, we can kind of figure out what position long term would be. It was really funny because, like, the people from AlphaGrowth, they were like, what about other chains? And I think the only other chain that has like some reputational issues is like the Binance chain, Binance Smart
BNB.
Chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their token is BNB,
Yeah.
and that has some reputational issues as well. But other than that, I think if they want to go to Aptos, Sui, Solana, like whatever they want, like go ahead, guys, bridge it over. Do you know what I mean? But it's very much the reputational factor is a very important one. But then I think we need to figure out just how important it is in the face of an empty deposit pool, a queue of validators, and there being potentially the space for tens of thousands of rETH there.
Yeah, I think the Rocket Pool, one of our comparative advantages is our reputation, and that is very valuable to us compared to some other LSTs. You wonder if is this something that if there's one thing to think about, if Rocket Pool turns it down, does someone else come in and take our place? Does Lido come in and say, oh, you know what? We'll do that. We're not as concerned about reputation. We're just concerned about making money. And that's what our VCs want. So that's something to think about as well. And usually these things turn out where, money talks, and usually sometimes you make deals with the devil, but you do it before your competitor does, and then you work it out later. But, these are things to talk about, because I don't know where I stand on it, because I think there's strong arguments on both sides.
Yeah, I think, as a community, we'll kind of figure out in the next few days or maybe weeks, and then kind of have this idea of where we're going to go going forwards. But it's really interesting, right? When the money's in your face and it's kind of waving around and saying, like, how much are your values worth? Then those are the hard questions, because there's actually like, it's all good and proper, like, with it being theoretical or whatever. But if someone says, here's, $200 million worth of TVL, like, what do you say to that? I think, it really does hold those values to the fire and say, like, what are you made of? Yeah. So this is a big test of the community, I think.
Justin Sun could come in and just fill in the deposit. He could throw in 18,000 right tomorrow, the next minute,
without thinking about it. Like
and then do it tomorrow again and again and again.
He is one of the biggest holders of ETH in the whole Ethereum ecosystem, because Tron, I think, ICO'd, and he basically just kept all his ICO ETH, and he has hundreds of thousands of ETH, and he oftentimes moves markets with his movements, right? Like, there was, I think, Eigenlayer or one of these airdrop protocols was, in their last weeks of farming, and he just came in and brought in 300,000 ETH and just threw it in there to earn all these rewards or points for farming. And it's just like, he can do that. And that's the thing, right? I think, Tron, they don't have a DeFi ecosystem at all. So I think they want to start a DeFi ecosystem, and the token that goes over there, with the LST that ends up going there, that could end up being like a foundational token that their pairs are made with. There'd potentially be a USDT rETH pair, USDT Tron pair, USDT USDD pair, like all of these different things, they get rETH pairs with all of those, and that would become the foundation of DeFi on Tron. It's a really, really big deal potentially, if it for whoever it goes right for. And that's what I mean, your values get really tested in these situations where you have to decide, what are my values worth? So, like you, I don't have an answer for this, but I'm following the discussion very closely, and I'm hoping that whatever the community decides, we are okay with it, and it doesn't cause any kind of schism or fracture.
It's really a centralized chain too. I thought I've read somewhere it was like they only have 27 node operators, and so then you have or validators. So you have centralization risk. Imagine OFAC sanctions comes down on, if there's any Americans doing this, right? But there's a lot of things that could potentially jeopardize that chain. But Justin Sun, I heard him on an interview on Bankless, I think, 6 months ago he was on. I think the guys had him on, and he seemed like, in the past, he seemed like it sounded like he's trying to do reputational rehabilitation, saying, I'm older now and I'm doing better, and we run this thing to be legit. And maybe I'm just overly summarizing it simply, but
Yeah.
anyways, he seemed like maybe he's turned the corner, but who knows? He has so much money. I think one last thing, he said something like he had 100,000. Was it like 100,000 ETH stolen out of one of his wallets, or 10,000 ETH? I can't remember what it was. It was it was $100 million. He had $100 million of tokens stolen from his wallet, and he's like, yeah, I should have. That was kind of a bad day, but. And he just shrugged it off. It was like, no big deal. It's like, you lost $100 million and you're just like, yeah, well, it's like I lost my wallet on the subway one day, and then like, oh, well, no biggie. So anyways, let's move on to wins. I think we both probably agree. I know what my win is. It's Saturn 0, huge launch, bond reductions. We got the deposit pool down to 0 effectively. And so, I mean, can't go wrong with that win. How about you?
Yeah, definitely Saturn 0. I think my expectations were very, very high. I think I had some of the most bullish public expectations of Saturn 0. Not just saying that the deposit pool would be empty. I said the deposit pool would be empty in 48 hours. I said that, we would get more ETH coming into the deposit pool to mint our ETH, and then that would be emptied again. Like, the numbers have kind of worked out, in my favor. Like, with 32,000 ETH worth of new validators coming online, that is emptying out the deposit pool and then adding more on top. However, the thing that I'm really looking for is those big rETH mints. I'm really hoping that we get a few of those, multi-thousand ETH worth of rETH mints. That would be amazing to see. And I think that's the next thing I'm looking for now is getting those big mints happening. And I think then that's going to get the ball rolling really nicely.
I think it's just a matter of time, because if before we had the deposit pool overflowing, we would get those big mints, occasionally. You had the Noun DAO come in, and you had
Nexus
Mutual, the insurance.
But just
protocol.
regular whales as well. Regular whales were minting.
When we would go over that deposit pool, you'd regularly see 4-digit deposits coming in. So I think it's a matter of time now that it's open. It's going to take some time for that information to disseminate across the crypto land. But anyways, it's been a good show. That wraps it up for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. We will be back next week with another edition. Whack, you have your show you're going to record later, so make sure everyone tune into Rocket Fuel, as I do almost daily. So until then, take care. See you, Whack.
Thanks, Pat. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.